So, hi everyone. Let's start with our Aeon Quantum Poetics from where we left yesterday. Let's start with, I think it's about the new series, right? So, I think we need to start from here. He lives in a world of individuals and required a representative system that honors that individuality. So let's see what this series holds for us. Let's start with the first basis. As Bosch's narrator starts to realize the paradoxes of Fune's afflictions express themselves in his struggle with language. Emblematic of the struggle is how Funes deal with numbers. Rather than seeing them as element of general system, Fumes feels the need to create an individual name and identity for every number. His numerical lexicon has, by the time of his conversation with Borges, narrator, surpassed 24,000. As Borges writes, instead of 7,013, he would say, for instance, Maximo Perez. Instead of 7,014, the railroad. Other numbers were Louis Mallien's Lafreniere, Olimar, Sulphur, Clubs, The Whale, Gas, Astepot, Napoleon, Augustin de Vedia. Instead of 500, he said 9. So this passage is saying that the condition of the fuels is like that he struggled with the numbers. He has a problem with language basically, and is more problematic he is about the numbers. So instead of seeing the number as an element, he create his own numerical identity by naming every identity individually. Like instead of 1730, he would say Maximo Perez. Maximo Perez for him means 1730. And instead of 7014, he would say the railroad. Like that, he just named the other numbers with some identity. So the title of this passage is Fumes Struggle with Language. Title is Fumes Struggle with Language. So what we can take from here is Fumes' affiliations express themselves in a struggle with language, which is the title. Emblematic of this struggle is how Fumes deal with numbers. So how the Fumes deal with numbers, which is saying that, but this is also the line there is not much valid for us. We can take this. Rather than seeing the numbers as element of a general system, Fumes feel the need to create an individual name and identity for every number. That's we can take as it is, because the rest are the examples. The examples are not for us. No use for us. So let's moving toward the next passage. Aside from being hilarious, the idea of Fumes using one numeral to designate another capture the enormous disability that his superpower entails. Bohr's narrator note this as well, pointing out that he tried to impress upon Fumes that his system entirely misses the point of numbers, but to no avail. Fumes isn't capable of generalization, of taking one sign as a stand-in for more than one thing. He lives in a world entirely populated by individuals and requires a representative system that honors that individuality. So this passage says that the idea means the way he is using a element as a form of numbers for representing different numbers is also an disability of superpower. Uh, even author also observed that if the fumes give means rename, or what we can say, the represents any number with any particular name, he not gonna repeat that particular title for any other things. He is not capable of generalizing that. So he says that we live in the general public, in generals, in normal behavior, people are not able to or need to honor that kind of individuality, which people are not. So the title of this species is Fumes Individuality. Fumes Individuality. So what we can take that the idea of Hume's using a one numeral to designate another captured the enormous disability that his his superpower entailed. That his system entirely missed the point of numbers, but do not avail. And this line as well. The Fumes isn't capable of generalization of taking one sign as stand-in for more than one thing. So let's read our next passage. Fumes required the kind of language some early modern philosopher such as John Locke has postulated, one with a term for every being in existence. But as the narrator goes on to speculate, if Locke rejects such a language for being so specific as to be useless, Hughes rejected because even that would be too general for him. This is because Fuse is incapable of the basic function underlining and enabling all thinking, abstraction. Consequently, the way other humans use language inevitably dissatisfied him. The narrator tells us not only was it difficult for him to see that the generic symbol dog took in all the dismissal individual of all shapes and sizes. It irritates him that the dog of 314th in the afternoon seen in profile should be indicated by the same noun as the dog of 315 seen frontally. His own face in the mirror, his own hands surprised him every time he saw them. So, this passage says that in the early modern philosopher whose name is John Locke, he also used he suggested that the fumes use a different kind of language. But when the author tries to teach or make the fume understand that that language is also too general for him to adapt because he is incapable of basic functions of underlining or enabling all thinking, abstraction. He says that it is difficult. He says that it is in his poem. He says that even it is difficult for the fumes to to see the general symbol of dog in all the dissimilar individuals. Because there is not a single varieties of dog and all. So he's confused that is that the 314 dog profile is also the same noun which is the 315. Even what about the other, no, just not talking about the other things. Even his own reflection surprise him every time whenever he see himself. So the title of this passage is Fume's incapability of taking things generally. Fume's incapability of taking things generally. Firstly, we can take this as a whole line. We can say that the films is reject the language given by the loci, because it's also too general for him to accept it or just to recognize it or to learn it. Fuse is incapable of basic function, underlining and enabling all thinking abstraction. Here it is given the examples why Hume is like that. So that's not for us. Moving toward the next paragraph. For Hume, human language is limited precisely by its slipperiness. And yet, and here is the brilliance and philosophical yum of Bourge's exploration. Behind Hume's claim for perfect perception and perfect recall, a paradox lurks. Hume would have us believe that each and every impression he has to the of the world is so overwhelming, specific that our use of the same word for a dog in two different moments of space-time is inadequate. He would have us believe he feels surprise each time he sees his own reflection. So, what's the Fume's view? This passage is saying about what is Fume's point of view from language, of language. So, the title is what the Fume's point of view of language. So, what we can take from here is first is that the Fume claims for perfect perception and perfect recall a paradox lurks. And another is that Fumes would have us believe that each and every impression he has of the world is so overwhelming, specific that our use of the same word for a dog in two different moments of space-time is inadequate. That's all for this passage. Let's moving toward the next one. But both his surprise and his irritations believe the very claim he is making, for in order to be surprised at his own reflection, in order to be irritated by the generality of the word dog, Fumes must himself also be able to generalize between the various impressions, his face in the mirror or the dog at 3:14 p.m. and at 3:15 p.m. make. It is, and this is the whole point of Bohr's reflection, utterly impossible to be as immersed in the present as Fumes claim to be and also to be aware enough of the generality of language to criticize it. Fumes is having this proverbial cake by experiencing the generality of language that allows it to identify different aspects of a thing and eating too. By being so immersed in the present that such generality is ostensible, inconceivable. So basically this thesis is saying that Hume's irritations about the word dogs, his own reflections, also means that's his observations which irritates him, like his general appearance or the word dog, gives the point of view to the viewers to reflect about it, that the same human beings, all the human beings are different. So everyone seeing the same thing with different perspectives. Like the fume confused about the whole dog profile in the same clock which shows 3:14 and 3:15. She just confused that is it 3:15 a dog is different from the dog of which shows the 3:14. So we are not seeing the things with that viewpoint. So here what just a Bourge observed that the how the different people see the same thing differently. So the title of this passage is the Bourge's description about the Bourge's reflection. This passage describes the Bourge's reflection. So what we can take from here is so first we can take here is the Fumes claims to be and also to be aware enough of the generality of the language to criticize it. Experiencing the generality of language that allows it to identify different aspects of a thing and eating it too. The whole passage by being so immersed in the present that such generality is ostensibly inconceivable. So this all for this passage. Let's moving toward the next one. Meanwhile, as war raged around him, and as he worked to produce or to hinder the production of, we may never know for sure, an atomic weapon for Germany. Hindenburg was secretly working on a philosophical book, the manuscript of 1942 would be named not for the year it was published, which wouldn't be until the long after his death, but for the year he finished and circulated it among his close friends. From that work, it would seem that what really interested Heisenberg during the time he was supposed to be working on Germany weapon program was the mystery of our relation to knowledge, relation or and knowledge of reality. The issue he believed came down to language. So this passage is about Heisenberg and his work. The title of this passage is Heisenberg and his work and his philosophical work. So what we can take was he written the book called Manuscript of 1942. which describe the mystery of our relation to a knowledge of reality. That's it. Let's moving toward the next pieces. For Heisenberg, science translates reality into thought. Humans, in turn, require language in order to think. Language, however, depends on the same limitation that Heisenberg work from the 1920s shows held for our knowledge of nature. Language can home in on the world to a highly objective degree, where it's become a well-defined and useful for scientists to study the natural world. But when it is so focused and fine-honed, language loses its other essential aspect, one we need in order to be able to think. Especially, our words lose their ability to have meaning that change depending on their context. So, here Heisenberg is explaining about the deep meaning of language for scientific scientifically. In science term, the deep meaning of language. The title of this passage is deep mean deep meaning of language in the terms of science. So what we can say take from here is that we require language in order to think. So language can home in on the world of highly objective degree where it becomes well defined and useful for the scientists who study the natural world. And the more another one is language loses its other essential aspects, one we need in order to be able to think, which depend on their context. So let's moving toward the next pieces, and which would be the last pieces of this today's video. Heisenberg called the first kind of language used static and the second dynamic. Humans use language in a variety of ways that span the spectrum between the mostly static and mostly dynamic. On one extreme, there are physicists who strive to link their words as closely as possible to the single phenomena. On the other side are poets whose use of language depends on its ability to have multiple meanings, while the scientists use the static quality of words so as to pin down observation. Under very specific conditions, they do so at a cost. As Heisenberg's write, what is sacrificed in static description is that infinitely complex associations among words and concepts without which we could lack any sense at all that we have understood anything of the infinite abundance of reality. So here, this passage is talking about the two kind of language we use. The first one is static and the second one is dynamic. Static is basically used by the scientists which have a particular meaning. Each word says a particular meaning and particular thing about any particular topic. But on the other hand, dynamic language used by authors and and in dynamic language we have Infinite means abundance of meaning of one word. So here the title of this passage is author's descriptions of Heisenberg's descriptions about two kind of language. Description about a static and dynamic language. So in static language, we can take that static language are mostly used by the physicists and dynamic language are used by poets. And in a static language, scientists use the static quality of the words so as to pin down the observations under very specific conditions. And static description is that infinite complex association among words and concepts without which we lack any sense at all. At all that we have understood anything of infinite abundance of reality. So because of that trade-off, insofar as thinking, because of that, oh wait, this line, this mini paragraph is left. Because of this trade-off, insofar as thinking about the world depend on coordinating both static and dynamic aspects of language, a complete and exact description of reality can never be achieved. So, here author is trying to say that for knowing anything perfectly, about the reality of anything, we need to depict the language both statically and dynamically. Without that, we are not achieved. We didn't know the reality of that thing. So I'm just stop here. Let's see you guys tomorrow with the next series of this pieces, which is I think tomorrow is the last. Okay. But as of now, bye. Have a great day.